All right, you grasshoppers, back by popular, and I do mean popular demand, the great Allie Krug. Allie, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So anybody knows, I met Allie through, I'm involved in a Warrior for Life fund down in Virginia Beach. Allie's husband is in the Navy. I didn't meet through him. There's another old friend of ours, Bob Bazzini. I was on the same hockey group down there. So I've been stuck with Allie. I've been stuck with you for like 3 months now or something.
I know. I was actually trying to figure out how long it is, Tom. I think it's actually longer than you think. I think it might be. I don't know. Let's not look back.
All right. So I'm going to get the name of your company. Okay. ABC Writings.
ABC Medical Writing.
Oh, darn, I forgot the medical.
Almost there.
Darn, I'm getting there. Okay.
You know, I might just have to change my company name because I picked it on a marathon, as I told you, at around mile 21, thinking it'd be easy to remember. And apparently,
that's fine. The ABC is fantastic. And you told me you came up with the ABC first, and then you found the words to fit into the ABC, correct?
Yeah, I did. But it just came to me. You know, Artemis is a Greek goddess, and she's a hunter, and it just has many different skills. So it just seemed like she, kind of like me, lots of irons in the fire. You know, I like to split wood, and I like to exercise and try to stay healthy. I love my boys. I'm a huge education policy nut. Nothing I think is more important to our kids than education.
Okay.
And you know, being a good citizen and trying to help others and be curious, right? So.
That is you. That is you. You find out answers. I've learned a lot from you about sources, how to learn, right? I mean, instead of just watching the news, how to research things and everything. It's been great.
Actually, I was thinking about you today, actually, because you mentioned your thought process and how you were researching the question that you had last week, which I've now forgotten.
Yeah, what was that too? Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah.
Yeah, it was something like the itchy skin after exercise.
Yes, that's right. Yes. Yeah.
So I have a new one for you. And, you know, there's mixed opinion on this, but prior to the pandemic, there was this thing called preprint servers where you could post your academic manuscript before it goes through peer review and then publication. You could post it for everyone to comment on. So it's called preprints. That was around before the pandemic, but it exploded in popularity because of the pandemic, because the peer review process takes a while and people were really interested in pushing knowledge out the door quicker so that we could use it. Mm-hmm. I think there's pros and cons to both. I really like the idea of open source. My kids have convinced me that open source code is good. And so open source review of data and manuscripts really harnesses the power of the collective intellect, you know, versus just 3 or 4 peer reviewers, which would be the normal, right? So I think when we're all looking at things, we're going to find different things that only makes the paper stronger. But at the same time, you're putting things in the public domain prematurely. So I have mixed feelings on that. So
yeah, and sometimes you're right. It is good to get a lot of different opinions, right? But it's almost, especially if something that you're really passionate about, and there's different options, and none of them are really wrong. Like you've got to go with your gut, what you really believe in too, right? And you don't want to be disrespectful to the other people that are coming up with different ideas. But like, what was the old saying I heard? Use some choice words of this, so I'll make it a little nicer. But it's great to go around and ask for as many opinions as possible, and then just go ahead and do whatever you want to do, right? I don't know if that's good advice or not, but I always love that statement for some reason. I don't know, for me, and I just, like, I know for me, if my heart's not into it, right? If I'm not really passionate about it doesn't matter what everybody else tells me is right or wrong, right? It's like, if I don't follow my heart, it just doesn't seem to work properly. So
I think that there's room for that, even in the pandemic. I mean, we've all been looking to experts for guidance and CDC for guidance, and, you know, hopefully your personal doctor for guidance, and trusted friends and nerds. You like to call me a nerd. People who have your best interests at heart, right? But I've really been with this over the last week. To what degree are people actually just using common sense at the end of the day? And I think a lot of that is going on. And I am not convinced that's a bad thing. I think that common sense is actually going to help us thread the needle and get back to normal.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I agree.
We haven't really fully decided, because we all would have a different definition of what common sense is. I mean, my husband would suggest my common sense is not all that great when I decide mischief needs to happen, you know?
Sometimes you just got to let it rip. Yeah. Sometimes you got to grip it and rip it. Yeah.
Right.
All right. I've got some, I guess I'm getting confused on this whole thing. Let's touch on the vaccine quickly.
No wonder. Should we? Yeah. And you're aware of the mask mandate changing and all of that, right? Okay.
But here's my thing. So now I was under the impression that the vaccine doesn't stop you from getting the virus at all. Now I find out that it does help fight it off. It's not just to treat the symptoms. It does provide some resistance for getting the virus. Is that correct?
I think it's possible we'll end up proving that is true. Usually with vaccines, we have this construct regarding disease versus infection that we talked about last week.
Right.
And so you can be infected but not actually develop symptoms, right? Depending on how quickly your immune system responds. So that's infection versus disease. And that's an important construct to bear in mind. I think that for many vaccines, we've not actually chased the data down with the same level of vigor and intensity that we are chasing COVID data down. The entire world is swarming on this and dedicating resources to answering questions like that, because I think it's highly infectious. And so it would be very useful knowledge to know if this virus that we now know can transmit via aerosol is actually something that the vaccine prevents not only disease, but in some cases, infection as well. And so we're trying to, I think, titrate our knowledge a bit even further than we do for most vaccines.
Right. So we really don't know the answer to that question yet. Then, right?
I don't know personally the answer with a degree of confidence that I would like to say right here, right now. But some data from Israel that I just pulled up before we went live to just kind of reorient things is here. Let's talk about protection because I wrote some things down. Whiteboard.
You got your notes. I like it. You're prepared.
Because I can't remember things. So I don't know. Can you see this, Tom?
Yep.
All right. So in this column, I have protection. And so there's different ways to protect yourself against the virus, right?
Yep.
So a single mask, this is one of those surgical masks with the little nose thing. A single mask is roughly 50% protective. Mm-hmm. A double mask, so a surgical mask with cotton mask over is about 85% protective. And that's as you, the wearer. Okay.
Hey, sorry to interrupt you, Ellie, but where are we getting that data?
This is from the CDC. They ran a study with a mannequin and they tested it in 10 and 15-minute intervals, making the mannequin cough. And so they had two different mannequins and they had receptors on one mannequin and the other one coughed and they measured all of this. Oh, it's pretty cool. I have it open now and I can send you the link if you're interested.
They have coughing mannequins. I didn't know that. Coughing mannequins.
Yeah. Yeah. So if both people are double masked, say you're with somebody who you know is immunocompromised or can't get the vaccine or doesn't want to get the vaccine but is high risk. So here's the 96% is important to know. If you're inside densely packed area and you want to be sure a loved one is protected, the 96% is both people wearing a well-fitting double mask. Okay. And then if you get 2 doses of the vaccine, I'll slide it over so you can see it. Recent data out of Israel, which had only the Pfizer vaccine available and had the B.117 variant, the UK variant floating around, also pretty dominant there, and vaccinated a whole population between January and March. Very high rates of vaccination. I don't know off the top of my head how many, but with universal coverage and a huge push, they did very well getting vaccination coverage above where we are. I think that they are exceeding 60% fully vaccinated. They're probably higher now. So this is what they found. They found 94% protection against asymptomatic infection. That asymptomatic infection is what you're talking about, Tom. So like say you're perfectly healthy when you go into a clinic and you get swabbed. Say you're an NHL player and you have to get swabbed before your game.
Sure.
So they swab you and they find, okay, no COVID. Okay, you have no symptoms and no COVID. So the vaccine 2 weeks after that second dose is 94% protective against asymptomatic infection, which is huge. I mean, if that's actually believable and true, and I want to do some more research to see if I fully appreciate the data behind that, and I believe it's true, that's incredible. 97% against symptoms, hospitalization, and death. So all forms of symptomatic COVID. So that would be the disease. So we talked about infection and disease. So 94% infection, 97% disease. That's crazy. I've not seen anything really like that because currently, like I said, we haven't really studied sterilizing immunity and other vaccines quite so much. The bar for sterilizing immunity is like, no way, no how, it's not getting in at all. Really, we've been looking at do the vaccines for kids and adults protect against disease? That's kind of what we've been looking at.
Right. So in the normal flu shot, the normal flu, just roughly, what are the numbers on that?
It's last I checked, it was somewhere around, and it depends on the strain. It depends on the match because they study the southern hemisphere to see what's circulating, and then they create the vaccine, and then they push it out in the northern hemisphere. So the match has to be good. And if the match is good, it's like between 50 and 70% effective. Okay. And then we vaccinate maybe, when I was looking at it for kids, I think it was around 60%. or higher. As you get older in age, there's better vaccine uptake for the flu shot because people are advised by their doctors to get that and the pneumonia shot. Okay.
Right.
The vaccine coverage goes up with age, but the flu shot is nothing like this. I mean, it's just radically different. And I would point out that the mRNA vaccines don't have any preservatives in them. That's important for some people, and no adjuvants.
Oh.
Adjuvants are little things that you stick in there to go, hey, immune system, check me out, come look at me, where the antigen isn't quite enough. So they put an adjuvant in there to get the immune system to come recognize it and make sure that you seroconvert, make sure that you actually get an antibody response.
Oh, very cool. That's good stuff. That's interesting. That's good stuff. Okay. So now, because of all of this, now they're starting to open up more things, sporting events. I think in some places they're having like 60% and people sitting right beside each other. And if they're, I believe I'm correct, if they're fully vaccinated, they can sit there without masks on. Is that correct?
I don't know about the different facilities in particular, but I do know that the CDC said if you're fully vaccinated, basically you can go back to life as normal before the pandemic, unless you're in a very crowded area or you're with somebody who's immunocompromised. And then, like we just talked about, you might want to take some extra precautions. And I think the CDC is striking a really cautious stance here because, as you just heard, the vaccines are extremely protective against even asymptomatic infection. But what they don't want to have happen is, start cramming places and then have people who are at high risk for severe disease who aren't vaccinated yet or got vaccinated, but their immune system didn't respond well, getting sick. They just don't want to see the at-risk population suffer even more than they already have.
So is there some expectation now that, okay, we have to open up, we got to get the economy going, all that kinds of stuff, and we'll see a rise in cases, but not like dangerous cases? Is that possible?
I think that's probably true. I mean, we're already seeing that kids are a greater proportion of the COVID cases that are happening because we're knocking it back in the adults, and kids until last week on Wednesday, kids younger than 15 and younger, I should say, were not able to get vaccinated. Last week on Wednesday, the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, they go by ACIP, recommended the COVID vaccine unanimously for kids 12 to 15. Yep. So that will help with that age group. A lot of people will be quick to point out that they're extremely low risk for severe disease, hospitalization, and death, but there have been 15,000 or so hospitalizations among kids. So it's not a joke either. I really hate when people compare COVID to flu. The people I'm working with on some articles right now know that I really dread that comparison because the numbers are just so hard to pin down, so they're apples to apples. But generally speaking, COVID and flu are not great if you're a baby or an infant. Neither is RSV. Your airways are tiny, and so any respiratory infection, if you're a baby, is not great. One of the ways to protect babies is to, get the rest of the family and the bubble around the baby protected. It's good for pregnant women to protect them because then the maternal antibodies go and protect the baby. So I think for kids, as we see the vaccine approved for younger and younger ages, the parents like myself who are really wrestling with this will need to think about, am I vaccinating my child for my child's benefit alone, or am I vaccinating my child to protect their buddy on the lacrosse team or their goalie on the hockey team? Because there are really real situations out there. For any group of 24 kids, you might find one who just really can't get vaccinated.
Very cool. Nice. Well, all right. I need you to evaluate Dr. Laidlaw's skills here. So I did some research, and I usually get allergies, and I have to take, I'm sneezing like everybody and, taking medicine or whatever. So I'm trying to stay all natural. So my research tells me that your nasal passages get clogged up and swollen up because of the allergies, and that turmeric is an anti-inflammatory. And if you take turmeric, it'll get rid of that swelling in your nasal cavities and help you with your allergies. I have put this into practice, and my evaluation is that it does actually work.
Does it? So how did you take the turmeric?
Liquid turmeric.
You drank it?
So every day, so I have a juicer, so I juice my ginger root, so it's fresh. And then I add, I'm sure you know this, turmeric, I guess, is hard to digest in the system. So I bought a turmeric, it has a liquid turmeric I bought at Costco, and it's got some, I can't remember what it's called. It's in it already to help your body digest it.
Okay.
And I would normally be getting allergies this time, and nothing. I take it every day. Yeah.
Huh. I saw that in our spice rack, and I've been hearing a lot about it, and I was just kind of wondering, thank you for that update and that live experiment.
Yes. See, thank you. Not only did Dr. Laidlaw perform, I was also the case study. I pretty much did it all. I didn't need any assistance whatsoever, so I'm very proud of myself. Yeah. So.
You might want to go back to school, actually. And have you thought about that?
I feel like
MCAT.
I actually feel like I have gone back to school. It's a great question by you. Like, I feel like I've learned to learn now more. Like, in our conversations with you and I that I have, like, I wouldn't have had these conversations before.
Yeah.
I wouldn't learn from people. And I feel like I learn from everybody now. I'm much more open. I did a great, I think I told you, I did a podcast with Kenny Bigby Jr., the Navy SEAL.
I wanted to hear how that went.
That's great. He was great. We talked about having confidence in yourself. So there's a fine line there to have confidence enough that you believe you can do things, but you can't have too much confidence that you think you know everything and now you stop learning. It was a really interesting conversation. So it really made me think, like, I think I really learned to learn more. That's the biggest thing I've learned, actually, during the pandemic too, because I've kind of forced more time and everything too. So
that's so true. And on the other end of that, I was talking to my boys about this. What were we talking about? He was wondering why there tend to be more male surgeons in the world. And I said, that's really interesting, because that's true in a lot of STEM disciplines, engineers and things like that. Women are certainly capable, but men are generally more likely to assume they can do something and to have that confidence. And women will be more likely to self-doubt. And I see this all the time in the education research. It's just a little bit of bravado is good. It gives you the ability to take on a challenge, right? But I also think women should not doubt themselves. They should go ahead and give it a shot.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think that can be you can learn to be like that too. You can train yourself to be like that. Like, I feel like I have trained myself more now as I've gotten older than ever, that to say yes to everything, like, and if you're somebody says that you're going to do, like, when I was down in Virginia Beach, we went to Bob's place there where you do the simulated skydiving.
I fly. It's awesome. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So, and I was with like 4 or 5 other Navy SEAL guys.
How much wind did they need to get you in the air?
Well, that's terrible. Why would you say that? That's terrible.
Were you good, Tom, or were you kind of like?
Oh, I was pretty big. I saw the video after. I didn't realize how big I looked in that tube for the other guys. But the instructor at the start said, "Who wants to go first?" And there I am with these Navy SEAls, and I'm saying, "I'm going first." That's I've learned more. In the past, I think I would have stayed to the back, especially guys like Navy SEAls and everything. But it's good though. All right, we need a little update here on the pull-up competition.
Yes, I will keep this sheet next to me to remind me to mention this to you. But I have a question for you regarding fear and all of that, because you often get a chance to talk to people who live and work in environments that are. I guess what I would say, have them on edge all the time. People who are special forces really they could get called up anytime. They could get sent into dangerous territory anytime. They have to operate in that environment. So I was thinking today, as I dropped off Sam at his high school, and I watched all these 1,000 or more kids going into school, what a great thing it is watching them be able to go to school. And yet there's states in the country that are not open yet. The schools are not open. Kids cannot go to school. And I hate to even say this, but self-harm rates are going up. And so I was just kind of wondering, like, to what degree does living in fear inform our public policy? Like, are some people more used to living in fear all the time? Like, say you live in a military community, which has a high proportion of SEALs and special forces and things. And that community is just like, yeah, we've had to operate on edge before the pandemic. Pandemic hit, our life is about the same. There are people who live in challenging environments, in densely crowded inner cities where, gun violence is higher. They have had to live on edge before the pandemic too.
Right.
I just kind of wonder how resilient those communities are, and would it have been maybe better to keep the schools open in those areas and protect the kids from, the education losses that they're having, and there's a flip side to every coin. So I don't know. I was just kind of curious what your thoughts were.
Well, it's interesting. Yesterday, I had another great interview. I had this Nate Boyer on. If you look him up, he was a Green Beret. Really interesting guy. He's a Green Beret. He's got a great website, BOYER.
Okay.
So he was a Green Beret, served for 5 years, I think it was. Then he came back, went to the University of Texas. And he never played football before, decided to go out for the football team at the University of Texas. So it was a huge thing. So he went to school for 4 years. While he was in school, he was still actively, I think he was in the reserve. So he'd actually go on deployments over to Afghanistan during the summer and then be going to school, take classes. So he became a long snapper at the University of Texas, which is just the guy that snaps the ball to like punters and kickers. And then he had a brief tryout with the Seattle Seahawks. And actually, he played a big role in Colin Kaepernick. You remember Colin Kaepernick? Yeah. So Colin Kaepernick had started off by, I didn't realize this, sitting during the national anthem. And Nate sent an open letter in the Military Times, I think it was called. Is it the Military Times magazine?
Yeah.
And saying to Colin, listen, I don't agree with your stance on this. I'm a patriot. I'll always stand. But if you feel it's necessary to do something, you may be better off kneeling. And then Colin Kaepernick contacted him. They had a conversation about it, and that's what started him kneeling. So a fantastic guy, Nate. And we actually got into the discussion about, I think I asked him about PTSD. And remember, didn't we have a discussion whether we should remove the D, the disorder part of it? And so when I asked him about it, he responded by calling it PTS. He had removed the D. And I asked him about that, and he said, listen, there's obviously some cases that it's a real disorder, but he talked about the stress he went through, and again, asking him if he's okay, all this stuff. And he says, well, listen, I have my issues, but who wouldn't after going through all that stuff? So I don't know if that kind of answers the question, right? Yes, maybe you get more used to it. You're out of your comfort zone more, and you get used to living in that stressful environment. But that doesn't mean the effects of the stress. I
think it gets to what my next thought was, which is coping. And can we learn coping mechanisms that help us moderate our response, our physiological response? And I think we can. Yeah. PTSD, because that's what they were studying in the literature, is about 20% incidents after disasters. They were looking at the tsunami in Japan, and after kids were quarantined following other pandemics, they actually saw about 20% prevalence of PTSD in kids. So I think, some of the doctor friends that I'm working with are really worried about, all of the mental health fallout from this. And I really think that resilience and how adults model for their kids dealing with this is so vital, because some kids are doing okay in a household where they're hearing nothing but COVID all the time, and other kids will hear nothing but COVID all the time and have, real challenges with worry and things. So I think we adults need to be mindful of how we position it, how we support them. I think youth sports needs to be kept wide open for them, because I also wonder if the kids are actually able to keep some part of their lives going has been protective for them. I mean, you and I are huge, supporters of, health and fitness as a way to manage your mind.
Totally, 100%. And I think that's the key. You hit the nail on the head. The adults who have the ability to make the decisions, how they talk, how they act, you have to be very aware that those kids are looking at you, and they're listening, and they're saying, well, those are my parents. I really respect their opinions. If they think this way, then I think that way too. And the negativity, sometimes you don't realize, I hate to say it, if you want to watch the news, watch the news, but there's a lot of negative news out there right now. And then people, once they watch the news, then they sit around, they talk about the news and all the negativity, and they don't exercise, and they're feeling down. And you've got a huge responsibility as a parent, I believe, to really set the tempo of how that child lives their life, right? So I agree 100%. Yeah.
That's true. We don't actually have news on in the house. And I decided today another non-medical, protective mechanism is, do you listen to music? I know I'm guilty of absorbing, podcasts and talking and learning all the time, but I don't listen to music enough. When I was driving back from school, Sam had been playing some Journey. And man, what a great feeling to, see the sun low on the horizon coming up and starting your day with, some great tunes. So I think we need to make sure that we listen to some New Jersey bands from the 80s.
There you go.
That's my recommendation.
So I go in the gym in the morning by myself, and I didn't realize the owner of the gym has cameras set up there. Because I'm by myself, I get the country music going. I don't know what it is. Country music just gets me just totally fired up. And I don't do it in the gym where normally people are there, but because I'm by myself, I'm dancing away to the country music and everything on. I'm working, and I swear to God, my workouts are better because now I'm into it more. Right? There's no drag, and I'm going. But I forgot.
It has a huge effect. It really does.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I agree. In the house here now too, I find the same as you. I keep the TV off and I more turn on my music, and I get the country music, especially when I'm cooking. I love having the music going in the background. So I agree. I think that's all that stuff. Yeah, I feel better. I start dancing around the house, and by myself, I get in bad habits. And if I told you, I talk to Google so much now. I said to Google probably about a month ago, I said, Google, do you love me? And she goes, oh, Tom, you're the best. You're the most wonderful thing. And I say, oh, yeah, there you go.
That's great. All right, I'm going to come back to your question about. I actually wrote down some data for you. I knew you would be asking about this, and actually, it's nice to have some accountability. So if you think you're crazy and it serves no purpose in life, do know that the accountability to Tom Laidlaw is important in our family. So Sam would like to report that he has 13 straight pull-ups, real pull-ups, not assisted off the ground, and 7 with hockey gear on.
Wow, nice. Oh, I like the fact that he's doing it with hockey gear on. He's challenging himself. Oh, yeah.
That's something to see that in the sport.
Increasing the degree of difficulty. We like that.
Oh, huge. The skates are really heavy, as you know, because I don't buy really expensive skates.
Yeah,
So the skates are heavy. And then young Ben would like to report that he has 6 straights,
right,
and then 4 with gear on.
Nice. He's a big boy, too.
He's a tall boy. He's almost as tall as me. He's like 110 pounds.
Yeah, he's solid.
And he's very lean. He's very lean and lanky. Yeah. I have 3 chin-ups to report.
3 all by that's huge progress. You couldn't do anything.
Off the ground, no kidding, no jump starts.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very good.
So I still think that's lame, but
we're going for progress, not perfection. Progress, not perfection. Okay.
And I would also like to report, when you were talking about never always say yes, I got myself into some really hot water last week.
What
whole
happened?
Gas prices thing. So I was trying to be a good citizen and not hoard, right? So I still had a quarter tank left. So I was not going to go clog up the lines. I was going to let people really need gas. Right. Well, one thing led to another. This is a 15-minute story, but I'll cut it short. I finally had to go get gas. I was nearly on fumes. When you're almost on fumes, you have to be super selective about where you go for gas, because you may have to leave your car there and run home if things get really bad. So I had like 2 options for gas, because I can run up to 10 miles, but it just got really, really crazy last week. So I get to the gas station. The key is to find a gas station with a line, but not a long line, right? Because that means there's gas there. So I get into the line. It turns out there's gas. Someone had actually seen the tanker in the morning. Someone saw the gas go in the ground. Well, they had a vapor lock because they had run the gas tank so low. There's no way to get the gas through the line. The poor guy in the store couldn't figure it out. The technician had to be called. All the older gas stations in Virginia Beach had the same trouble. So the poor technician was losing his mind, running around trying to fix them all. Right. And I made 7 new friends.
Oh, nice.
Because people gave up, but I waited and waited. And finally, my car, my old 20-year-old yellow Xterra, was parked at the pump. So like I was there and ready. The gas could come out at any moment. By the time you're in so far, you've waited like 3-4 hours. Right. You're in. You can't give up. And I don't give up. That's a character flaw of mine. Yeah.
It's a huge quality. What are you talking about?
I don't know. It's something that I've been laughed at, and I was afraid to even admit. I won't even tell you a total number of hours that I waited for gas, but I did eventually get gas. But so these new friends invited me to go running with them, and they were like, oh, they were so nice. And so I was like, oh yeah, that sounds great. Of course I'm going to go running with you. Well, they were like, well, it'll just be like, maybe 4.5 or 5 miles and 9.5-minute miles, just an easy run. I show up, and these guys are 7 of them. They're twice as tall as me. And we end up on a 9-mile run at 8.5-minute miles.
Ooh,
I had no water. I just slugged some coffee. I'd had pizza the night before because I thought I was in for a friendly jog, Yeah. I didn't know I was in for basically what ended up being a half marathon, because I had also promised a friend to go walking that day. And so it was a nutty day. I was just so thankful for the ice cream I ate for lunch, Tom. I can't even tell you.
Look at it. See, you said yes. You got a huge workout from it. Oh, I love that. And you waited for the gas too. I love that. Huge marks by you. Way to work.
Yes, persistence. And how you talk to yourself, right? And having fun. And then I saw some people on the neighborhood network thanking everyone who was so friendly at that 7-Eleven. So I thought that was nice. We've spread some good cheer while we were waiting. And I met some really great people, See,
that's the way to do it, right? Instead of getting mad and frustrated about the whole thing, what can you do about it? Getting frustrated isn't going to change the situation. So talk to people, meet new people. I think that's fantastic. Way to work.
It was hilarious, actually. The whole thing was so ridiculous. We're like, there's gas in the ground. People would pull up, and we were actually, the 7 of us were walking around directing traffic and telling people what's going on. And we're like, yeah, there's actually gas in the ground. We just can't get to it. But, we're hopeful people.
Yeah, that's cool. That is cool. How is that now? Is it better now? You have gas?
It seems like we have gas, but I'm now thinking any day could be different. So I'm going to follow my dad's advice. He's a big Army guy, always prepared. I will never go under half a tank again, ever.
Yeah, I know. I'm the same way. I'm the same way with my cell phone. If I get like the 50% on the battery charge, I have to charge it up again. I go into like panic mode or something like that. My kids laugh at me. Yeah, they laugh at me all the time. So yeah, I'm like that with my spices and everything, all my food, and I have backup.
Oh no, I've got half my turmeric left.
Yeah, oh totally. If I get down to half, I have to have a backup. There's no question. Yeah.
Do you use Echinacea at all?
No, I do not.
Really?
What's that?
You don't know about Echinacea is a real immune boosting herb, and it actually has some decent literature behind it. I take that when I'm feeling a little dodgy, like a little Echinacea tea.
Oh, yeah, remember I talked about autophagy, right? When you go into autophagy when you're fasting. I watched a video the other day, and I backed up with some more research about some foods that also help you with autophagy. Green tea, ginger, turmeric, and there was some other name. I can't remember the name of the other thing. It's a name I hadn't heard before, but it's pretty interesting talking about it because I thought autophagy just came from fasting, but I guess the foods you eat can really help with your
can turn you. Yeah, I would imagine so. It changes the metabolism. When you come down here, we're going to get you to eat something that might really kind of shock you. We might have to do it live.
Okay.
It's called natto, and it's really, really good for the body. Natto. Do not Google it before you come down, though.
Okay.
No looking, no peeking, no cheating.
What it is going to freak me out. Is that what it is?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, okay. I won't look then. So I'll just go ahead and eat it. I'm just going to trust you and go ahead and eat it.
Yes. And it's going to be awesome. You're going to have so much fun.
Really? So yes. I've got to look now. I can't.
Your grasshoppers can look, but they are not. They must be sworn to secrecy.
Okay. All right. Natto. Natto.
Yes,
okay.
It's a fermented product, so you know it's wonderful for you. It's kind of like kimchi is wonderful for you. Yogurt, great probiotic. It's amazing. Okay. I love it.
Okay.
I will take you to go get it, and then we'll see just how tough you are.
Oh, really? Does it taste nasty too?
I won't say anything more.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
But the grasshoppers, we have a team of advisors watching us now. They're welcome to check it out.
Okay, good. I'll tell you, I remember I first had a shot of ginger. Have you ever had a shot of ginger?
No, I don't think so.
It burns too. So I remember somebody told me 2 or 3 years ago, I had a cold or started to get a cold, runny nose and throat and all that. And they said, just do a shot of ginger. I'm Tom Layla. I don't do shots of ginger. So I went and did a shot of ginger finally after giving in, and it burned going down. I'm like, what the heck did you give me? But it was like instant almost. It was amazing how well ginger works for all that stuff. I've researched more and more ginger and turmeric, and it does so many great qualities to it, like the immune system and all that. So
I'm a huge nut about these old shows. I mean, we've probably watched a year's worth of shows set in, I don't know, the 1700s and the 1800s. And I love trying to figure out, when a child gets sick on one of these shows, I try to figure out what they might have had. And then I look at what the remedies are that the people used back then. I just love when television or, movies try to get it right, because it's so neat to see how people tried to treat disease before we had antibiotics and vaccines. Yeah. Just unbelievable.
When my father used to get a cold, my mother would make a hot mustard pack.
Huh.
I don't know.
Like
I can't remember.
Chest, you mean?
Yeah. I can't remember totally what was in it, but it must have worked, because I remember she would make it for him all the time. He's working out at the farm and getting colds all the time and everything. So yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Remember, even Vicks Vapor Rub was a big thing. Do people even use that now?
I still have some.
Oh, okay.
No one really likes the smell, but I make them use it. I make the kids use it if I feel like they're. What I was thinking about? It's really odd that I have not seen one of my kids really sick. A fever over 101 in years. Absolutely years. Yeah. Strange.
No. Did you expose them? Were they super clean when they were kids growing up, or did you let them be exposed to germs? Did you think through that, or?
I take what I hope is perceived to be a pretty middle of the road thing. I insist on washing hands after the bathroom and before eating. And that's primarily because I'm selfish. I really do not like gastrointestinal diseases, particularly that one. Yeah. I really hate it. It always happens at night. It's always horrific. It's like an explosion. I used to wear a headlamp in so that I could actually see what I was getting into, with the red light. Because I wear contacts, and I would have to get really close to what was going on. I don't want to get really close to the disaster that happened in the middle of the night.
Oh, yes.
So I insisted on my kids running for the bathroom. So I take a lot of precautions when it comes to what's called fecal oral transmission, and that's what causes that. It's dirty hands. And an interesting study in San Diego found that if you were to swab park benches, that they were looking for COVID, but they were swabbing everything under the sun. They had citizen scientists out there swabbing stuff and then testing it. Right. And there was a lot of fecal oral contamination, so dirty hands.
Okay, so, fecal oral contamination. So there's fecal matter is obviously coming out, right?
Yes.
So my youngest son, Cody, he used to hate when I would pass gas when he was in the room, particularly when he was eating, and he just
because he said it's particulates.
Right, because the science is that it's fecal matter that's floating around. That's interesting. Huh?
We did it, Tom. We managed to get there, didn't we?
yeah, that's true. Yeah, we got. All right, so we were going to talk about food. We won't talk about it today because we're out of time here. But next week when we do our show, I want to talk about food as medicine. I had a good friend of mine. We were talking about this before the show. I was talking to him yesterday. I hadn't talked to him in a while. He's involved in a fantastic project where they've gone to the healthcare companies and convinced them, at least some trials right now, and it looks like it's all going to work, to use, particularly with diabetes, to use food as medicine, sending them pre-prepared food meals that are healthy and everything to help them lose weight and then get rid of the diabetes. And it ends up being a cost-saving method to the healthcare company as well. I think they spend like $250,000 a year. So we'll talk about that some more. I thought that you and I have talked about that subject before, how important, one of the big things for me and you as well is the health of our country is not where it should be right now. And that causes a lot of other issues, not just with this virus, but with diabetes and heart disease and all those other things. So.
No, it's true. And Tom, actually 1 in 5 kids have obesity. And I was just looking at, we've talked about how difficult it is to get healthy food on a budget. Yeah. And I actually was just reading that there's a subsistence food support program called SNAP. And there's some discussion about, kind of changing the guidelines to encourage people to use that support on healthier foods, because poor people who did not receive SNAP funding actually ate more whole grains and produce and things than people on the SNAP funding. So I think the movement is coming along with us here, Tom, to try to help people eat better. So will your friend be coming on next week with us, or would you like me to beg my nutritionist friend to come on?
That'd be fantastic if she'd come on. That'd be great. I will be doing a show with he and his partner. So yes, definitely. I'd love to have her on and talk about that too. That's become one of my big things now. I like that. It's good. All right.
Great.
Great job on the pull-ups. Again, progress, not perfection. I would expect to report again next week with some improvement.
Yes. Can you see?
Yes. There you go. Gun show. See everybody next week.
Bye, everybody.